Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Menachos Ayin Ches. We begin at the Mishnah, which is around 10 lines off the top. Hamiluim. So we know that in the Mishkan, in the Midbar, when they inaugurated the Mishkan, they brought karbanos miluim, and amongst them we have bread offerings. So just like by a toida comes along with a batch of breads, as we learned yesterday, 4 different types, 10 chametz, 30 matzah. Hamiluim hoibayin kematzah shebetoida. Hamiluim, they skipped the chametz part. They only brought the matzah variations. All 3 of them, right? Chalois, the more like loaf-looking matzah, Verikik, the more flat bread type, Uravicha, the one that's cooked, scalded in oil. So it went from 4 types to 3. Nazirus, on the other hand, which a person would bring when he finishes his Nazirus experience. It's also a carbon with breads. But how many types? Down to 2 types. No chametz and no revucha. So only 2 out of the 3 matzah types. Nazirus Eisabok, Shtei Yadei. Shtei Yadei means 2 parts of 3, so 2/3. Kematzah shal toida, of the matzahs that a toida would bring, meaning it's only chales and urikikin, but there's no revuch of einba, revuch nimtza. So it turns out he only needs 2/3 of the material, of the flour. So typically, how much flour is designated for the matzahs? If you count with kabin in Yerushalayim, it was 15. So here it's only 2 parts out of 3. We're down to 10 kav. If you work with isarin, so it's 10 isarin, 2/3 of which are 6 2/3. Okay, so nimtza asara kav in Yerushalayim was 10 kav instead of 15, because it's only 2 out of the 3 types of matzah. And if you count with isarin, shein shisha isroines voidayin, 6 isarin plus 2 oids, 2 additions, 2/3. So it's 6 2/3. No, how do we know that in the Miluim they would bring the matzah variations without the chametz type? Look at the pasuk by the Miluim. So what did he take off from the basket of matzahs? Lakach, and the pasuk here will list for us all 3 types of matzahs. Chalas, that's the loaf form of a matzah achas. V'chalas lechem shemen achas, that's the revucha with oil. Rukik echad, that's the rokik. Explains the word. Bishleim chalois. So the word chalois is, of course, chalois, right? That's the loaf type of matzah. Rokik is the rokik, the flat one. What is the shem and the oily? What is that? Mainino, what is that? Lav revucha. We assume it's the revucha. So you see, all 3 types were brought. Maskeflor of Avia, who says it's an oil-saturated loaf. Ema ansa, the mishcha. Maybe it's a cake, a solid congealed, oil cake. The mishcha of oil. Ella kededar shav nachmar chizdam shmei Rabbi Tavla. I'll show you that in fact they brought all 3 types, including revucha, which incidentally was a type of mincha that every kohen gadol brings every morning. That's the chavita we talk about many times. He brings in the morning, the afternoon, a standard kohen gadol offering, which was also cooked in oil. And the pasuk compares the Miluim experience to the chinuch experience when you start for the first time to the standard chavitin of a kohen gadol, which is revucha. Zeh karban Aaron avanav asher yakrivu l'Hashem b'yamim hashachos. So the following is the carbon that Aaron or his kids will bring the day that he was anointed. Now, what's the connection? What's the connection? What's the correlation? So the kids of a kohen have to bring a carbon when the father gets appointed and anointed? Well, what's going on? Rather, the pasuk is telling you that when the child of a kohen gadol, later down the road, any kohen gadol is appointed. Chinuch means it's the first time he's serving. It's the beginning of his avodah. Comparing that event lehi mashchay to the anointed, meaning to the minchas chavitin that a kohen gadol, the anointed one, has to bring every day. which we know is oil-based, my mashcha, just like that one is revucha, as the pasuk clearly states, it's murbeches teviena, it's revucha, it's scalded in oil. Af chinuchay revucha, likewise, when a kohen gadol begins his avodah for the first time, he brings the same type, an oil-saturated mincha, and likewise back in the Mishkan by the Miluim, we assume that's what the pasuk means when it says chalas lechem shemen, was oil, saturated with oil, means revucha. So now we established that when a kohen is inaugurated for the first time, he celebrates his first avodah, he brings a special korban, like a minchas chavitin that a kohen gadol brings every day. Amar kohen gadol, hamiskarav l'avodah. So the kohen gadol, it's the first time doing an avodah, so he needs to bring a double dose, 2 of this type of mincha. Why? To mark 2 events. First of all, it's his first time in. Second of all, it's a standard fare for kohen gadol on a daily basis. Tzarech shtei yisroinis is to bring 1 yisroin for this, 1 yisroin for that. Shtei yisroinis ha'ifa. Achas 1 lehi mashchay, because of his position, because a kohen gadol does this every day. V'achas l'chinucha. The second one is because it's his first time in. Ma'abrav Ashi Amar, no, it doesn't stop there. It can get even to 3. Ma'abrav Ashi Amar shalish. There really is no machlekes here. It all depends on the event. The number 2 is when this kohen gadol that was appointed today. Sure, it's his first time doing avodah as a kohen gadol, but he has already been here in the past when he was an ordinary kohen. So now he's just celebrating the first as a kohen gadol. So he brings 1 for that, 1 for chavitin, the standard, kohen gadol offering. The number 3 is when it's his first time, period. He never served as a regular kohen either. He was went straight to the kohen gadol category. He never did avodah when he was a kohen headed. It's his first time serving as a kohen gadol. So now he's celebrating 3 things. First time during service, period, that's 1. First time doing service as a kohen gadol, that's 2. And thirdly, the standard minchas chavit. Okay, so we established that by the miluim they had just the matzahs and all 3 types. We also learned that a kohen gadol on his first time in brings revucha, and sometimes it could be 2 or 3 at a shot. However, a nazir, when he completes his experience, he brings the ayal nazir with breads. But how many breads? First of all, it's only a matzah, and even within the matzah category, only 2 types out of 3. No revucha. Tanarabana shlamav. So this is a pasuk discussing the korban shlama. It says, he tied over there, it brings the breads, and it says, al zevach toida shlamav. Shlamav is an extra word. L'rabbi shami nazir. We learned that even a nazir brings a similar arrangement. He brings his shlamim with breads. Lasares kav ben yushalmis. L'revi is shemen. He brings 10 kav of flour to supply his matzahs. And only a revius of oil. Now, how do we get to these numbers? So Rashi explains, very simple. We had the first part of the Mishnah, that it goes down from 15 kav to 10, because 15 kav is to bring all 3 types of matzah, but here it's only 2 types, so it goes down a third to 10. And oil as well, because you see, you started with a lug, a toida would be brought with a full lug, let's call it a liter of oil. It was divided down the middle. Half goes to the chalos, half goes to the chametz, and half goes to the matzah. So now we're down to half a lug for all 3 matzah categories. Now Rashi explains that revucha was more oily, so it got a higher percentage of that oil. So you took that half a lug and split it into 2 again. A quarter lug goes to the revucha, which the nazir doesn't bring, so he deducts that. All he's left is a quarter lug for the other 2 types of matzah. So that's how we get to these numbers. Again, shlam of l'rabbi shalmi nazir, la'aseres kav ben yushalmi is 10 kav of flour. L'revi is shemen, a quarter lug of oil. Yochel l'choil l'masha bin. Who's to say? Maybe he brings revucha as well, all different types of matzahs. Tamulayim matzahs. Pasuk says by the nazir, it says matzahs. My Talmud says the Gemara, well, why does the word matzahs preempt revucha, which is also a type of matzah? Amar Papa, davar sheneva by matzahs. He only brings those types which are associated with the word matzos. So you look at the psukim by the carbon toida. By Rebucha it says chalois b'lulis b'Hashem. It doesn't use the word matzos. It only does it by the chalois and by the matzos, by the rekika, not by the Rebucha. So the nazir, where the word matzos is mentioned, is specific only to two types of matzos which are associated with the word matzos. So we skip the Rebucha. The Rabbi Shmuel Tana, he provides another source for this, because if you look at the pasuk by Nazir, we find it within the pasuk. We find an indication that we skip the Revucha, because it starts with the word matzos, which is klal, a general term which can relate to all types of matzos, even Revucha. But then it specifies chales urikikin. That's a prat. That's specific reference to those two. So we have a klal uprat. And when a klal, a general term, is followed by a specific term, ein b'chlal el mash b'frat, we learn that the chlal is only referring to those specific entities, and therefore chales rukikin in, those two are in, but otherwise, like Revucha, that's out. So bottom line is, by a toida we have 4 types of breads. It goes down to 3 by the Meluim, by the Nazir we're down to 2. Says the Mishnah on Amud Beis. So we know that the shchita of the carbon toida actually affects the bread. It's an accompaniment to the carbon. It gets kaddish, gets upgraded to the status of inherent kedusha aguf during the shchita of the toida. Now, what if the bread is not around? We did the shchita of the toida inside, the Beis Hamikdash, in the Azora, but the breads were outside. Lachma and its breads were chutz l'chayma, outside the chayma. Lo kiddush alechem, the bread does not become kaddish because it wasn't really a joint experience. It's not included. What if it's still in its dough form? No, it has to be bread, properly baked bread. Shachta actually batano. Let's say that the shchita on the toida before the face, the top surface of those breads were karmu, got crusted in the oven. It's still considered dough, and therefore it doesnn't work. Vafilu karmu kulan, even if they all crusted except for one. Chutz me'echad mem l'kiddush alechem, the bread does not become kaddish. Now, when the Mishnah says the bread needs to be inside as opposed to outside the wall, which wall are we talking about? Which area disconnects the bread from the how far does it have to be? In order for it to be disconnected and unassociated with the carbon, it has to be far out, outside Yerushalayim. Beis Pagi was the outer area of the wall of Yerushalayim, beyond which it disconnects from the carbon back in the Mikdash. But let's say it's in Yerushalayim, which is technically a place where you can eat the carbon toida once it's processed, so it's a place which relates to the carbon. If the bread is somewhere there, it's okay, close enough. It doesn't have to be in the Azora together with the carbon and the Makam Akrava. But Rish Lakish Amar says no, it has to be close proximity in the Azora itself. It has to sort of jointly experience the Akrava in the Azora. Rish Lakish Amar chutz l'chayim is Azora, but if it's outside the Azora, too far gone. Explains the Gemara. What's it based on? Rish Lakish Amar chutz l'chayim is Azora. If it's outside the Azora, it's too far. Because the pasuk says that the breads are connected. It says v'hikriv al zevach hatoida chalas matzos. The breads are al. Al means nearby, connected with. But al b'samach. The al means literally close proximity in the place of hakrava. Rabbi Yechon Amar chutz l'chametz beis pagi says even if it's outside the Azora, as long as it's in Yerushalayim, it's okay. Chutz l'Azora kaddish. But if it's outside the Azora in Yerushalayim, it's okay. But al b'samach, we don't learn al to this extent that it has to be in close proximity, as long as it's somewhere in the area. Says the Gemara. Now this very same discussion we already had back in Pesachim regarding the Isra of doing the Shechita of the Karban Pesach with Chametz in your possession. And the question there is, does the Chametz have to be in the Azora with the Karban Pesach as it's being shechted, or even if it's outside somewhere in your possession, it's also bad enough? So we have the same machlokes there. Rish Lakish says only if it's in the place of Akrava and the Azor. Rabbi Yechon says anywhere. So what's the point of duplicating the same discussion by the Lachmei Toida, which runs along the same system? Ask the Gemara Voy Fliga B'Chadazim. This very same dispute has been presented elsewhere by the Karban Pesach. This nan Asher Pesach al Chametz. A person does the Shechita of the Pesach when he has Chametz in his possession. Oiver B'Loisasi has violated the Loisasi of Loisishchat al Chametz Dam Zivchi. Do not shech the Karban Pesach with Chametz. Rabbi Doim Afat Tamid applies even to the carbon Tamid Shalbein Arbaim. If there's chametz, it's over, it's in Israel. And the question is, where is the chametz located? We have Rish Lakish who says right here. And only right here is it a problem. Rabbi Yochanan says anywhere. Rish Lakish, he's only liable in the case where either the person doing the shechita on the Pesach, or the Zarek, or the Kohen doing the Zrika, or one of the members of the Korban Pesach. He has it with him in the Azara. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, no. Even if it's not in the Azara, if you own the chametz, it counts. So what's the point of repeating the same machlekes in Psachim and in Menachos? Shricha says the Gemara both are needed, both have some uniqueness to them, which can't be related to the other case. Had we only discussed the case of the chametz with the Korban Pesach, I would speculate. Perhaps Bahi Kam Rabbi Yochanan, it's over there, only over there Rabbi Yochanan says, look, even if the chametz is elsewhere, if it's in your possession, it's a matter of you, right? A matter of you doing the Pesach with your chametz in your possession. So wherever the chametz is, if it's in your possession, it generates an isser. Over here, we're talking about the bread becoming affected by this hakrava, by this carbon, and getting kedusha. Ema, perhaps I can say, even Rabbi Yochanan will get to Rish Lakish. It has to be right there in the place of hakrava. That's what I would think. If not for the fact that we learn otherwise. Right? He would agree to Rish Lakish, if the bread is in the Azara Kodesh, it gets Kedusha. Avroi, but outside the Kodesh, it does not get Kedusha. That's what I would think. On the other hand, had we only learned the discussion pertaining to the Taida, I would go the other way. I would speculate, I would suggest, come Rish Lakish. Perhaps it's only here Rish Lakish says we insist on the bread being nearby because it's getting Kedusha. It has to be part of the Akrav experience in the Azar Aval Bahach. But in the case of the Chametz, who cares what the Chametz is? If you own the Chametz, you are violating because you are processing the Korban Pesach with the Chametz in your possession. It's more of a personal issue. That's why we discuss both cases. No, in each case, each one sticks to his own position. Whether it's the bread or whether it's the chametz, according to Rish Lakish, the issue is only when it's right here in the Azar. Tanya, however, we have a raya, support from Rabbi Yochanan, that the Taita bread need not be in the Azara per se. He did the shechita in the Azara properly. The bread was outside Yerushalayim, that's a problem. Then it doesn't work like the bread does not become kaddish, but otherwise, if it's anywhere in Yerushalayim, it works. Now, it has to be somewhat baked, right? To be considered for the Korban Taita. So he did the shechita before the bread got crusted over. It doesn't work. But not how do we know? Then in fact, this is the case. We have a brayso. So let's analyze the pasuk there, which says like this: Al chalois lechem chametz yakriv karbonoi. You should be makriv the carbon with the breads. Al zevach teda shlamav, which comes along with the carbon shlam. Toida shlam. Tana rabbanon. Al chalois lechem chametz yakriv karbonoi. So first of all, we learn the basic halacha that we had in the Mishnah al zevach, that the bread becomes kaddish through the zvicha, through the shechita. Malamed, we learn she'ein alechem kaddish elim kein karvan ebatanu. Okay, so first of all, it has to be bread. At a minimum, it has to be crusted over. Number two, Yaakov Karban El Zevach, we learned that what makes it Kaddish? The Zvicha. Malamed, we learned She'en Alechem Kaddish, Ela B'Shchita Zevach, it's only the Shchita of the Toida which generates the Kedusha on the breads. And finally, the last words of the Pasuk is Zevach Toida Shlamav. From here we learn it has to be intentional, it has to be focused. Malamed, we learned Shem Shachna Shlo Yishmar, he did the Shchita on the Toida. With the wrong carbon in mind, he thought it's an Oila. It has to be Zevach Toida Shlamav. He has to have in mind that for a Shlam and for a Toida, Loi Kaddish Lechem, in this case, the bread does not become Kaddish. Toner up on him. How baked is baked? So now, we take a little shift over to the halachas of consumption of achilas matzah on Pesach. You can fulfill your obligation, but matzah no, even with partially baked matzah, with matzah suyi bi'ilfas, or matzah that was baked in a pan. My matzah no, now, at what point is it called matzah no, which passes? Not raw, and not completely baked either, right? So what are we talking? Or Bidam Shmuel, you have to achieve a certain degree of bakedness. Kosher parsa. So this is the test. You'll crack the mat, you break the bread. And if there are no raw strings pulling, right, no strings attached, then you know it's adequately baked, adequately dry, which works. There are no strings pulling. Same criterion is applied to lachmei toida. Once it achieves that level of bakedness, it's considered bread, and that corresponds with the shiur in the Mishnah as well, which sets it up as karmu poneh batano. The top surface is somewhat crusted. That's an indication that it's adequately baked. Pshita, says the Gemara. Well, obviously, of course, the same model that's applied to matzah is applied to korban toida. Why? Because in both cases, the Torah refers to them as lechem. Apparently, they work the same system. Pshita hacha lechem ksiv. Here by the toida it says lechem. V'acha lechem ksiv, and by the matzah. So hacha, the first one is going on the hacha lechem ksiv. By the matzah it says lechem ayini. V'acha by lechem toida also says lechem ksiv. It says al chalis lechem chametz. So why would you think to differentiate? Well, perhaps I would speculate that toida has higher standards. Why? Echad amar rachmana. We learned yesterday that the Torah instructs them to remove one bread, and the Torah calls it echad. It has to be a single entity. So perhaps if it's only partially baked, it's not really a proper entity. It doesn't really carry its own weight. You pick it up, it disintegrates, it falls apart, right? Echad amar rachmana. Torah dictates echad. Shalito pars. You can't take a broken one. Vaha. And this partially baked bread, come on to prisadam, perhaps we should consider as though it's broken apart. It doesn't really carry itself as one unit. Comes Rav and he says, no, kamash malon, the point is, this is enough baked, it's considered bread, and it works. Itma, now we know that by the Toida there are 40 breads. What if he fellow decides to bring 80 breads? He's super generous today, he brings 80. It doesn't really work, because 40 is the required amount. Itma, Toida sheshchat al shmoinim chalas. What if he did? He brought a whole truckload of bread and he shechted the toida with the 80 chalas. What happens? Chizki Amar, Kachu. Kodesh Chizki, it works. Now only 40 become Kaddish, but since we can't really discern which ones, we can't identify which ones, so we have to treat them all as though they're Kaddish, but technically only 40 are Kaddish and the carbon works. Kachu Arbaim, 40 become Kaddish from the Mitayich, from the 80 Shmoinim. Rabbi Yechon Amar, it's a non-starter. Loi, Kachu, Arbaim Tech Shmoinim, doesn't work, because he has too many. Now, let me explain to you the machlekes. Hakol Moedim all agree. Even Rabbi Yechon would agree in the following case. Heichadamar, if he announces his intention as follows. Heichadamar, he says, Likachu Arbaim Teichshmanim. He says, look, I want only 40 to become Kaddish. I don't intend on more than 40. So in this case, all agree it works, even Rabbi Yechon. Kachu, because he's not intending on doing more than 40. On the other hand, Al Yikdishu Arbaim, if he stipulates, I don't want 40 to become Kaddish, Elim Kein Yikdishu Shmoini, unless all 80 become Kaddish, he's clearly indicating that he wants all 80. All agree it doesn't work, like Kachu. All agree. So what's the machlekes about? Machlekes is bistama, unspecified. He brought a truckload of 80, did the shechita, he didn't explain his intention. How do we view it? Does he really want a jumbo carbon? Or perhaps the extra is just as a backup, just in case something goes wrong, but really, he wants a standard size carbon. Mar Savar, that's the machlekes. Chizkiya is of the opinion, Lachrayis Kamachavan, he's not trying to make a jumbo carbon, he just wants Achrayis, a backup, just in case. So it works. Mar Savar, Rabbi Yechon says, no, the carbon called Kamachavan, he's trying to make a jumbo, super generous carbon, it doesn't work. That's one way to explain. By Amar, here comes another way to explain the machlekes. The Kuli Alma Kamachavan. Now Rashi seems to learn that according to Abai, everybody assumes that he's trying to make a jumbo carbon. So how could it work? Machlekes is like this. Perhaps we could disregard his intention. Machlekes is whether a kli sharis, a holy vessel, like in this case a knife, which is being used for the shechita of the Torah, which is actually generating and activating the kedusha on the bread as well, can it work independent of the owner? Shaloi v'das, without the owner's intention, meaning, can we disregard the owner's intention? Is the kli sharos a standalone, independent power? Mar savar kli sharos mikachin shaloi v'das. Chizkiah says yes, it can work on its own. Does what it has to do. And since the required number of breads are 40, that's what it's makadosh, not more, so it works. Irrespective of the owner's, jumbo plans. Umar Savach, Rabbi Yechon says no. It can't work on its own. Klei sharos and makachin shalim, it can't work without the das of the owner. So, in this case, since he's trying to make a jumbo carbon, he can't disregard it. So it doesn't work. Rav Papa, here comes another pshat. The Kuliyam all agree, generally, klei sharos, makachin shalim, das, klei sharos can work independently. But here it's not a standard kli sharos. Typically, kli sharos is a receptacle, it's a container, it has its own environment, it can work independent of the owner of the... Here it's a knife, which is more of a flat surface. It's a kli sharos, but of a different type. Here, the question is on the status of the knife. How powerful is that knife to work independent of the das? Mar savar kli sharos. Chizkiah says it can work like a kli sharos, and we disregard the owner's intention. Mar savar. Rebbe says the knife is different. Sakin kibul l'saytech, since it doesn't have the interior and doesn't create its own environment. It doesn't have the same power as a regular kli sharos, and here it's bound to what the owner has in mind, and it's possible. Here comes yet another pshat. Rav Papa the kuliyam kli sharos ein makashel midas. Just the opposite. Typically by kli sharos, all agree it's not going to sanctify its content unless it's in line, it's consistent with the das, but it can't work on its own. Here it's a question of a knife. Perhaps a knife is even stronger than your typical kli sharos. Why? Mar savar, Chizkiah says, sakin aliyom kli sharos. A sakin is more powerful in a way than a regular kli sharos. Aliyom kli sharos. The avra less the koich mekacha. You see, look, even without a toich it works. Even without an interior, it is mekadosh. Apparently it works on a different track. And since it has that advantage, perhaps it can be used independent of the owner's intention, and it works. Even in this case, of the 40 breads. Umar Saba Rabbi Yechon says, no, it's like every other kli sharos, no different. Sakin le'alimule kli sharos. Sakin is not any stronger or more powerful than regular kli sharos, which must follow the dictates of the owner, etc. And since in this case, he's trying to bring a jumbo 80 challah carbon, it doesn't work. Okay, perhaps we'll leave the next piece for tomorrow. Bezras Hashem. Let's just recap this piece of Gemara. So we learn that we learn from the Pesukim that the shechita of the Torah is what's mekadosh the breads, provided that it's bread. It has to be somewhat baked, which runs the same rules as matzah. What if the bread is outside the area? It doesn't work. What does the area mean? According to Rish Lakish, it has to be in the Azara itself, just like by the Chametz. The issue is only when it's in the Azara. That's what Al means. B'samach. And Rechon says Al doesn't necessarily mean nearby, as long as it's associated with it, even if it's outside, if it's in Yerushalayim, which is the Makam that you eat the Torah, that's enough. And likewise by the Chametz, if it's in his possession anywhere, it is problematic. What about a fellow who brings 80 chales? Chizkiah says 40 become Kaddish, Rechon says none become Kaddish, and we have 4 ways to explain the Machlekes. All the best to you, and B'suras Tovos, and Hatzlacha.